She planned everything, down to the second. Except me.
My name is Greg Norris, and I should have listened to the garbage man from day one. But who takes life advice from a guy who smells like week-old fish and drives a truck that sounds like it's dying? Apparently, I should have. It was a Tuesday morning in October when everything started falling apart. I was standing in my driveway in suburban Cleveland, watching the rain turn the fallen leaves into a soggy mess, when this new garbage collector pulled up. Big guy, maybe 50, with arms covered in tattoos that looked like they had stories I didn't want to hear. "You Greg Norris?" he asked, stepping out of his truck. "That's me. Frank, right? You're replacing old Pete?" "Frank Mallory." He glanced around, then looked me straight in the eye. "Listen, I don't usually get involved in people's business, but you seem like a decent guy. You need to be careful around here." I laughed. "Careful of what? The worst thing that happens in this neighborhood is Mrs. Krantz stealing newspapers." Frank didn't smile. Instead, he lifted his shirt slightly, revealing an elaborate tattoo on his ribs, a snake wrapped around a dagger with some kind of gang symbols I didn't recognize. "You ever see this design before?" Something cold settled in my stomach. "Why would I?" "Your wife's been wearing jewelry with this same symbol lately. Little pendant on a chain. Seen her talking to some rough-looking guys at that coffee shop on Meridian Street." My mouth went dry. Carla had been acting strange for months. Coming home late, always on her phone, suddenly interested in fitness and new clothes. She worked as a creative director at Morrison & Associates, a mid-sized advertising agency downtown. Or at least, that's what she told me. "Look, Frank, I appreciate the concern, but I'm not finished." His voice dropped lower. "Those guys she's been talking to, they work for Vincent D'Amato. People call him Viper. He runs numbers, protection rackets, loan sharking, real nasty piece of work." The rain was getting heavier, but neither of us moved toward shelter. "What exactly are you telling me?" "I'm telling you to watch your back and maybe start asking your wife some hard questions." Frank climbed back into his truck. "Be smart about it, though. These people don't mess around." As he drove away, I stood there getting soaked, my mind racing. Carla had been different lately. Colder, more distant. She'd started working out obsessively, bought new lingerie that never seemed to be for my benefit. And yeah, now that I thought about it, she'd been wearing a new pendant. A small silver thing she claimed was from some boutique downtown. I walked back into the house, where Carla was getting ready for work. She stood in front of our bedroom mirror, applying lipstick with the precision of a surgeon. Everything about her was perfect. Blonde hair, styled just so. Designer suit that probably cost more than I made in a week. Shoes that clicked against our hardwood floors like a countdown timer. "You're soaking wet," she said without looking at me. New garbage guy wanted to chat. I tried to keep my voice casual. "Nice pendant, by the way. Don't think I've seen it before." Her hand moved instinctively to her throat, fingers touching the silver chain. "This old thing? I've had it forever." Funny, I could have sworn it was new. Now she did look at me, her green eyes sharp. "Are you keeping track of my jewelry now, Greg? That's a little weird, don't you think?" "Just making conversation." "Well, don't. I'm late for a client meeting." She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. "I'll be working late again tonight. Big presentation tomorrow." After she left, I sat at our kitchen table with a cup of coffee, staring out at the gray October morning. Carla had been working late 3 nights a week for the past 2 months. When I called her office, her assistant always said she was in meetings or had stepped out. I picked up my phone and called Morrison & Associates. "Hi, this is Greg Norris, Carla's husband. Is she available?" "Oh, hi, Mr. Norris. Actually, Carla called in sick today, said she had a terrible migraine." My coffee suddenly tasted like ashes. "Right, the migraine. I forgot. Thanks. So where was she going in that perfect suit if not to work?" I called my buddy Jared, who worked construction with me at Pinnacle Engineering. "Hey, you free for lunch today? I need to talk to someone." "Sure, man. Everything okay? You sound weird." "Just meet me at the Dropout at noon?" The Dropout was our usual spot, a blue-collar bar that served decent burgers and didn't judge you for drinking beer at lunch. Jared was already there when I arrived, nursing a Budweiser and scrolling through his phone. "So, what's eating you?" he asked as I slid into the booth across from him. I told him about Frank's warning, about Carla's lies, about the pendant. Jared listened without interrupting, his expression growing more serious with each detail. "Dude," he said when I finished, "that's heavy. What are you going to do?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm being paranoid. Maybe there's a perfectly reasonable explanation. Yeah, and maybe I'm the Pope. Jared took a long pull of his beer. You want my advice? Follow her. See where she really goes when she's supposed to be working late? That feels like crossing a line. She already crossed the line when she started lying to you. That evening, I told Carla I had to work late on a project. She seemed relieved, which should have been my first clue. At 6:30, I parked across the street from Morrison and Associates and waited. Sure enough, at 7:15, Carla's white BMW pulled out of the parking garage. I followed her through downtown Cleveland, staying back far enough to avoid detection. She didn't head home. Instead, she drove to an upscale restaurant called Meridian, the kind of place where entrees start at $40 and the waiters wear ties. Through the large front windows, I could see her sitting at a corner table with a man I'd never seen before. He was younger than me, maybe 35, with dark hair slicked back and the kind of tan you don't get working construction in Ohio. Even from a distance, I could tell he was the type of guy who thought he was God's gift to women. They were sitting close together, her hand resting on his arm, both of them laughing like they were sharing the world's funniest secret. When he leaned across the table to kiss her, I felt something break inside my chest. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching my wife of 12 years play house with some stranger. When they finally left the restaurant, they walked to his car, a black Mustang with racing stripes, with his arm around her waist. I followed them to the Riverside Inn, a motel that rented rooms by the hour. Classy. The next morning, Carla came home at 6 a.m., claiming she'd fallen asleep at her friend Sierra's house after a girls' night out. She showered immediately, washing away any evidence of her evening activities. How was your night? She asked over breakfast, buttering her toast like she hadn't just destroyed our marriage. Productive, got a lot done. I studied her face, looking for any sign of guilt or remorse. There was nothing. How's Sierra doing? Oh, you know Sierra. Same drama, different day. I nodded and went to work, where I spent the day in a fog of anger and disbelief. By the time I got home, I'd made a decision. If Carla wanted to play games, I could play games too. I called Sierra. Hi, Sierra. It's Greg. Thanks for letting Carla crash at your place last night. I hope she wasn't too much trouble. There was a long pause. Greg? Carla wasn't here last night. I haven't talked to her in over a week. Oh, my mistake. Must have been confused. After I hung up, I sat in my garage, surrounded by tools and half-finished projects, trying to figure out my next move. That's when I heard a knock on the side door. It was Frank, the garbage man, looking even more serious than before. We need to talk, he said. Frank stepped into my garage without waiting for an invitation, his eyes scanning the space like he was checking for surveillance equipment. The overhead fluorescent light cast harsh shadows across his weathered face, making those prison tattoos look even more ominous. You ask your wife about that pendant? He asked. She lied about it, said she'd had it forever. I closed the garage door behind him. And she's having an affair. I followed her last night. With Vincent D'Amato? I don't know his name. Dark hair, expensive car, thinks he's hot stuff. Frank nodded grimly. That's Viper. And if your wife's mixed up with him, you're in more danger than you realize. What kind of danger? The kind where people disappear. Frank pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. It was the same guy I'd seen with Carla. But in this picture, he was standing next to a black Escalade with 2 other men who looked like they bench-pressed Buicks for fun. Vincent D'Amato runs the East Side for the Torino family. Pills, gambling, extortion. You name it. He's got his fingers in it. My legs felt weak. I sat down heavily on my workbench. What would a guy like that want with Carla? Could be she's laundering money through that ad agency. Could be she's feeding him information about clients with money. Could be she's just another pretty face he's using for cover. Frank put his phone away. Or maybe she approached him. What do you mean? I mean, maybe your wife isn't as innocent as you think. Maybe she saw an opportunity and took it. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. Carla had always been ambitious, always wanted more than what my blue-collar salary could provide. She'd made comments over the years about our neighbors with their bigger houses and fancier cars, about how we could have more if I just applied myself or thought bigger. How do you know all this? I asked. Frank was quiet for a long moment, then pulled up his shirt again, revealing more tattoos on his back and chest. Because I used to work for them. Did 8 years in Mansfield for armed robbery. Been clean for 3 years now, but once you're in that world, you never really get out. You just learn to recognize the signs. So why are you helping me? Because you remind me of my brother. Good guy, worked hard, trusted the wrong person. He ended up in a dumpster behind a warehouse in Akron. Frank's voice was flat, matter of fact. I don't want to see that happen to you. That night, I pretended to be asleep when Carla came to bed. She slipped in quietly, smelling like expensive cologne that wasn't mine. In the darkness, I could hear her breathing, could feel the heat from her body, and all I could think about was how well I thought I'd known this woman. The next day at work, I couldn't concentrate. I was installing new HVAC units in a downtown office building, but my mind kept wandering to Carla and Vincent D'Amato. What was their end game? How long had this been going on? And more importantly, what were they planning to do about me? My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Stop asking questions or you'll regret it. I showed it to Jared during our lunch break. Dude, you need to call the cops, he said. And tell them what? That my wife's cheating and someone sent me a vague text message? Tell them about the mob connection. Based on what? The word of an ex-con garbage collector? Jared frowned. So, what are you going to do? I'm going to get proof. That afternoon, I bought a small digital camera and a GPS tracker online. If Carla wanted to play spy games, I'd give her some real espionage. Over the next week, I documented everything. I took pictures of her meeting Vincent at various restaurants and hotels. I tracked her car to places she'd never mentioned, a warehouse on the east side, a strip club called Velvet Dreams, a house in an expensive suburb that definitely wasn't Sierra's. The GPS data showed a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd spend 2 hours at the warehouse. Every Friday, she'd go to Vincent's house, a sprawling ranch in Shaker Heights that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 years. But it was what I found in her laptop that really opened my eyes. Carla had gotten sloppy, probably because she thought I was too stupid to be suspicious. Her email was still logged in when I checked her computer one evening while she was in the shower. The correspondence between her and Vincent went back 6 months. It started flirtatious, but quickly turned business-focused. They were discussing investments and opportunities and removing obstacles. In one email, Vincent wrote, "The husband's situation needs to be resolved soon. He's becoming a liability." Carla's response made my blood run cold. "I'm working on it. Give me another month." There were also emails between Carla and Sierra that painted a very different picture of my wife's best friend. Sierra wasn't just aware of the affair, she was actively helping coordinate it. She'd provided alibis, helped Carla open secret bank accounts, and even scouted locations for meetings. But the most incriminating evidence was a series of financial documents. Carla had been slowly draining our joint accounts, transferring money to accounts I'd never heard of. She'd also taken out a life insurance policy on me 6 months ago, a $1 million policy I knew nothing about. I printed everything and hid the copies in my toolbox at work. That weekend, Carla announced she was going to a spa retreat with Sierra. "You deserve some time to yourself," I said, kissing her cheek like a dutiful husband. "Have fun." As soon as she left, I called Frank. "I need your help," I said, "and I think it's time I knew exactly who you really are." We met at a diner on the west side, far from anywhere Carla or her friends might go. Frank looked different in civilian clothes, less intimidating, more like someone's uncle who happened to have made some bad choices in his youth. "My real name is Frank Mallory," he said over coffee and pie. "Everything I told you about my background is true, but what I didn't mention is that I've been working with the FBI for the past year." I nearly choked on my coffee. "You're a Fed?" "I'm a confidential informant. The Bureau flipped me when I got out of prison. In exchange for information about my old associates, they helped me get clean and start over." He stirred sugar into his coffee. "Vincent D'Amato has been on their radar for years, but they've never been able to get close enough to build a case, until now." "What do you mean?" "Your wife isn't just sleeping with him. She's helping him launder money through Morrison and Associates. They've been using the agency's client accounts to clean cash from his various operations. It's a sophisticated setup, probably moving millions of dollars a year." The room seemed to spin around me. "How long have you known?" "About the money laundering, a few months. About your wife's involvement, about 6 weeks. That's when I started keeping an eye on your house." Frank leaned forward. "Greg, I need you to understand something. These people aren't just going to divorce you and move on. You know too much, even if you don't realize it. They're going to eliminate you." "End me?" "Make you disappear. Accident at work, car crash. Maybe you just walk away from your life one day and never come back. Vincent's good at making problems go away permanently. I thought about the life insurance policy, about Carla's emails, about how she'd been so encouraging lately when I talked about working late or taking on dangerous jobs. What do I do? Frank smiled for the first time since I'd met him. We're going to give the FBI everything they need to take down Vincent's operation, and we're going to make sure your wife gets exactly what she deserves. Frank's plan was elegant in its simplicity. We were going to let Carla and Vincent think they were winning, all while documenting their crimes for the FBI. But first, we needed to flush them out, make them act rashly. The key is making them think you're getting suspicious, but not too suspicious, Frank explained, as we sat in his beat-up Chevy outside a Starbucks on Monday morning. If they think you know too much, they'll accelerate their timeline. If they think you're completely clueless, they'll stick to their original plan, which is, based on what you found in those emails, I'm guessing they want to wait until after the holidays. Less suspicious if a guy has an accident in January than right after his wife takes out a life insurance policy. The thought of Carla coldly calculating the best time to have me ended was almost too much to process. This was the woman I'd married, the woman who used to leave little notes in my lunchbox, who cried during romantic comedies and insisted we adopt a stray cat we'd found in our backyard 3 years ago. How do we do this without getting me ended in the process? Very carefully, Frank handed me a small device that looked like a hearing aid. FBI surveillance equipment. It'll record everything within a 20-foot radius and transmit it to a receiver I'll be monitoring. You wear this whenever you're around Carla or Vincent. What if they find it? Then we have bigger problems. That evening, I decided to test the waters. Carla was in the kitchen making dinner, something she rarely did anymore, humming while she chopped vegetables for a salad. How was the spa weekend? I asked, leaning against the counter. Relaxing. Sierra and I really needed the girl time. She didn't look up from her cutting board. How was your weekend? Quiet. Did some work in the garage, watched the game. I paused. Funny thing, though. I ran into Mike Henderson at the hardware store. He said he saw you at that new restaurant downtown on Friday. The expensive one. Her knife stopped moving. Mike Henderson needs glasses. I was at the spa on Friday. That's what I told him. Must have been someone who looked like you. Must have been. She resumed chopping, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Over the next few days, I dropped similar hints. I mentioned seeing a car like Vincent's in our neighborhood. I asked about charges on our credit card that I knew she'd made. I wondered aloud about the life insurance policy that had arrived in the mail. Each time, Carla deflected smoothly, but I could see the worry growing in her eyes. She started checking her phone more frequently, taking calls in the other room, staying up late on her laptop. On Thursday, the trap snapped shut. I was working late at the office building downtown when my phone rang. It was Carla, and she sounded panicked. Greg, you need to come home right now. What's wrong? Someone broke into the house. They trashed your office and went through all your files. I felt a cold smile spread across my face. They were moving faster than Frank had predicted, which meant they were scared. Did you call the police? Not yet. I wanted to talk to you first, see what might be missing. I'll be right there. Instead of going home, I drove to the prearranged meeting spot where Frank was waiting with 2 FBI agents, a stern-looking woman named Detective Sarah Weller and her partner, a younger guy named Detective Martinez. They took the bait, I said. Good, Weller said. We've got surveillance teams positioned around your house in Vincent's known locations. Are you ready for this? I thought about Carla's face when she lied to me, about the emails planning my death, about the life insurance policy. Yeah, I'm ready. When I got home, Carla was waiting in the living room, wringing her hands like a concerned wife. My home office had indeed been ransacked. Papers scattered everywhere, drawers pulled out, my computer missing. This is terrible, she said, rushing to hug me. What if they come back? What would anyone want with my stuff? I'm just a maintenance engineer. Maybe it was random. Maybe they thought we had more valuable things. I held her close, feeling the wire under my shirt and knowing that every word was being recorded. Maybe we should stay at a hotel tonight. I don't feel safe here. That's probably a good idea. We packed bags and drove to a Holiday Inn near the airport. Carla seemed nervous during the drive, constantly checking her mirrors and fidgeting with her phone. Are you okay? I asked. Just shaken up. It's scary having someone go through your personal things. At the hotel, Carla excused herself to call Sierra and tell her what had happened. I could hear her through the bathroom door, but her voice was too low to make out words. When she came out, she seemed calmer. Sierra thinks we should call the police in the morning, file a report for the insurance. Good idea. That night, lying in the unfamiliar hotel bed, I listened to Carla's breathing and wondered how many nights she'd spent planning my death. The woman next to me looked the same, smelled the same, even made the same little sighing sound she always made when she was falling asleep. But she was a stranger. Maybe she always had been. The next morning, Carla suggested we go out for breakfast before dealing with the police. She recommended a place called Murphy's Diner on the east side, coincidentally, the same area where Vincent's warehouse was located. "I've heard they have great pancakes," she said. As we drove through the increasingly rough neighborhood, I wondered if this was it. Was this where they planned to make their move? The FBI surveillance team was following at a distance, but a lot could happen in the time it took them to respond. Murphy's Diner turned out to be a greasy spoon in a strip mall between a pawn shop and a check-cashing place. Not exactly Carla's usual scene, but she seemed to know her way around. We were halfway through our eggs and bacon when Vincent D'Amato walked in. "Well, well," he said, sliding into our booth uninvited. "If it isn't Greg Norris?" Up close, he was even more intimidating than he'd looked through restaurant windows. He had the kind of smile that never reached his eyes and hands that looked like they'd done things you wouldn't want to think about. "Do I know you?" I asked, though my heart was hammering against my ribs. "Vincent D'Amato. I'm a friend of your wife's." Carla looked genuinely surprised to see him, which meant this wasn't part of their plan. Vincent was improvising, which made him dangerous. "Honey, this is Vincent. He's a consultant who works with some of our clients at the agency." "Consultant," I repeated. "What kind of consulting?" "Problem solving," Vincent said. "I help people resolve difficult situations." The threat was barely veiled. I could feel the wire under my shirt and hoped it was picking up every word. "What kind of problems?" Vincent's smile got wider. "Oh, you'd be surprised how many problems people have. Cheating spouses, business partners who ask too many questions, employees who steal from their companies." His eyes never left mine. "Sometimes people just need to learn when to mind their own business." "That's good advice," I said. "A man should definitely mind his own business." "I'm glad you see it that way." Vincent stood up. "Enjoy your breakfast, folks. And Greg, be careful out there. Cleveland can be a dangerous city if you're not paying attention." After he left, Carla was quiet for a long time. "He seems like a nice guy," I said finally. "He's just intense. A lot of consultants are like that." "Is he the reason someone broke into our house?" Carla's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe someone thinks I know something about his business. Maybe they think you told me something you shouldn't have." "Greg, you're being paranoid." "Am I? Because it seems like an awful big coincidence that your consultant friend just happened to show up at this random diner on the same morning someone ransacked my office." Carla set down her fork and looked directly at me. For a moment, I saw something cold and calculating in her eyes, something that made me understand how she could plan my homicide over email. "Maybe we should go home," she said. "Good idea." As we walked to the car, I caught sight of Frank across the street, pretending to read a newspaper. The cavalry was close, but I was still very much alone with a woman who wanted me dead. The drive home was silent except for the radio. Carla stared out the passenger window while I tried to process everything that had just happened. Vincent showing up wasn't part of Frank's plan, which meant things were spiraling out of control. When we pulled into our driveway, I noticed a black Escalade parked down the street. The same car from the photo Frank had shown me. Vincent wasn't taking any chances. "I'm going to call in sick today," Carla announced as we walked into the house. "I don't feel up to dealing with work after everything that's happened." "That's probably smart." She went upstairs to change clothes while I pretended to clean up the mess in my office. In reality, I was checking to make sure the FBI's surveillance equipment was still hidden where we'd placed it the day before. When Carla came back downstairs, she was wearing jeans and a sweater, casual clothes that would be easy to move in. Not a good sign. "I think I'm going to run some errands," she said. "We need groceries, and I want to stop by the bank." "Want company?" "No, that's okay. You should probably call the insurance company about the break-in." After she left, I immediately called Frank. "Something's wrong," I said. "Vincent showed up at breakfast, and now Carla's acting strange. I think they're moving up their timeline." "We're watching both of them. Vincent went back to his warehouse and your wife is at the grocery store. Looks normal so far. It doesn't feel normal. Trust me, Greg. We've got this covered. But as I hung up the phone, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something important. Carla was smart. Smarter than any of us had given her credit for. If she was planning something, she wouldn't make it obvious. I spent the afternoon pacing around the house, jumping at every sound. When Carla came home with groceries, she seemed almost cheerful, humming while she put away the milk and eggs. Feel better? I asked. Much. Sometimes you just need to get out and do normal things, you know? That evening, she made dinner again. My favorite meal, pot roast with mashed potatoes. She even opened a bottle of wine, something we hadn't done in months. This is nice, she said, raising her glass. We should do this more often. To normal evenings, I said, clinking my glass against hers. As I took a sip of wine, I wondered if this was how it would end. Not with a dramatic confrontation or a violent struggle, but with a quiet dinner at home, sharing a bottle of poisoned wine with the woman I'd once loved. But the wine tasted fine, and as the evening wore on, nothing happened. We watched television like a normal married couple, made small talk about work and the weather, went to bed at our usual time. I lay awake most of the night, waiting for something that never came. The next morning brought the kind of gray, drizzly weather that makes Cleveland feel like the end of the world. I was drinking coffee and pretending to read the newspaper when Carla's phone rang. She answered it in the kitchen, but I could hear her voice from the living room. Are you sure that's necessary? She was saying. I think we should wait. No, I understand. Fine, but I don't like it. When she hung up, she seemed agitated. She paced around the kitchen for a few minutes, then came into the living room where I was sitting. Greg, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Here it comes, I thought. Okay. Have you been following me? The question caught me off guard. I'd expected her to be more subtle, to ease into whatever conversation this was going to be. Following you? What do you mean? I mean, have you been spying on me, checking up on where I go, who I'm with? I set down my coffee cup and looked directly at her. Should I be? That's not an answer. Neither was yours when I asked about that pendant. We stared at each other across the living room, 12 years of marriage suddenly feeling like a chess match, where neither player wanted to make the first move. I think we need to talk, Carla said finally. I think you're right. She sat down in the chair across from me, the same chair where she used to curl up and read romance novels on Sunday afternoons. Now she looked like she was preparing for a job interview. I haven't been completely honest with you, she began. No kidding. I've been seeing someone else. Even though I'd known it was coming, hearing her say it out loud felt like a punch to the stomach. How long? 6 months. Do I know him? No, he's not someone from our usual circle. I almost laughed. Our usual circle consisted of my work buddies and her college friends. Vincent D'Amato definitely didn't fit that description. What's his name? Does it matter? It matters to me. She was quiet for a long moment. Vincent. And what does Vincent do for a living? He's in business. What kind of business? Greg, please, this is hard enough already. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet suburban street. Mrs. Krantz was walking her little dog, probably hoping to catch some neighborhood gossip. If only she knew what was happening right inside her favorite Target house. Are you planning to leave me for him? I asked without turning around. I don't know, maybe. I haven't decided yet. What would help you decide? When she didn't answer, I turned back to face her. She was crying. Real tears, not the crocodile tears I'd expected. I never meant for this to happen, she said. I never meant to hurt you. But you did mean to take out a life insurance policy on me without telling me. Her face went white. How did I find out? Maybe because I'm not as stupid as you think I am. Now the tears stopped, and I saw that cold look again, the one that told me exactly who I was really married to. You've been going through my things. Your things. It's a life insurance policy on my life, Carla. I think that makes it my business. She stood up, and I could see her mind working, trying to figure out how much I knew and how much I was guessing. It's not what you think, she said. Really? Because what I think is that you and Vincent are planning to end me for the insurance money. The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a house fire. Once they were out there was no taking them back, no pretending this was just a normal marital conversation about an affair. That's insane, she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it? You've been draining our bank accounts, lying about where you go, meeting with a known criminal. And now you want me to believe that $1 million life insurance policy is just a coincidence. Vincent isn't a criminal. He's a businessman. What kind of businessman carries a tool and has 2 bodyguards? Her mouth opened, then closed. She hadn't expected me to know about the bodyguards. You have been following me. I've been trying to figure out why my wife turned into a stranger. Carla walked to the window and looked out at the street, her arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. When she spoke again, her voice was different, harder, more calculating. You want to know the truth, Greg? Fine, here's the truth. I'm tired of living like this. I'm tired of counting pennies and shopping at discount stores and driving a 10-year-old car. I'm tired of being married to a man who's perfectly content to fix air conditioners for the rest of his life. So you decided to have me ended? I decided to find someone who could give me the life I deserve. And if that someone happens to be a mobster who solves problems by making people disappear, well, that's just a bonus. She turned back to face me, and for the first time since I'd known her, Carla looked genuinely dangerous. Vincent isn't going to hurt you, Greg. Not if you're smart about this. Smart about what? About walking away. About understanding that this marriage is over and accepting a reasonable settlement. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. A reasonable settlement? Like what, my life? Like a divorce where you get to keep breathing? The threat was out in the open now. No more pretending or dancing around the truth. My wife wanted me dead, and she was giving me one last chance to cooperate with my own homicide. And if I don't want to be reasonable, then Vincent will solve the problem his way. I walked back to my chair and sat down, trying to look like a man who was considering his options, instead of a man who was wearing a wire and had FBI agents listening to every word. How long do I have to think about it? Vincent wants an answer by tonight. Tonight? That's not much time to decide whether to let my wife and her boyfriend end me. Nobody wants to end you, Greg. We just want you to go away. Where exactly would I go? Somewhere far from Cleveland. Vincent has connections. He can help you start over somewhere else. With what money? You've already cleaned out our accounts. There's enough left for a fresh start. If you're careful with it. I nodded like I was actually considering this insane proposal. And what happens to you and Vincent? We'll figure that out after you're gone. In our house, with my life insurance money. Greg, please, don't make this harder than it has to be. I stood up again, but this time I walked toward her instead of away. She took a step back, suddenly looking uncertain. You know what the really crazy part is? I said. I actually loved you. Even after I found out about the affair, even after I saw the emails, part of me still hoped there was some explanation, some way this could all make sense. Greg, but there isn't, is there? You're just a greedy, selfish person who decided that homicide was easier than divorce. It doesn't have to be homicide. Right. I could just disappear voluntarily, take a nice long walk off a short pier. You could start over, find someone who makes you happy. Someone who won't try to have me ended for insurance money? Someone who's a better fit for you than I am. I reached out and touched her face, the same way I had on our wedding day 13 years ago. She didn't pull away, but I could feel her trembling. You're right about one thing, I said. This marriage is over. Then I walked upstairs to pack a bag, leaving her standing in the living room with tears running down her face. But I knew they weren't tears of regret or guilt. They were tears of frustration because her plan was falling apart and she was going to have to find another way to get what she wanted. 20 minutes later, I came back downstairs with a suitcase and my laptop bag. Where are you going? She asked. To think about your offer. I'll call you tonight with my answer. Greg, wait. But I was already walking out the door, leaving behind 12 years of marriage and a house that no longer felt like home. As I drove away, I could see Carla in the rearview mirror, standing in our doorway with her phone already pressed to her ear. She was calling Vincent, of course, telling him that Plan A had failed, and it was time to move to Plan B, which was exactly what Frank and I had been hoping for. I drove straight to the FBI field office downtown, where Frank and Detective Weller were waiting with a team of agents and enough recording equipment to stock a radio station. The wire I'd been wearing had captured everything: Carla's confession, her threats, her admission that Vincent was planning to end me. We've got enough to arrest both of them, Weller said as we reviewed the recordings. Conspiracy to commit homicide, insurance fraud, money laundering. Your wife and her boyfriend are going to prison for a very long time. What happens now? Now we wait for them to make their next move. Based on what your wife said, they're expecting an answer from you tonight. When you don't call, they'll probably come looking for you. And then, we'll be ready for them. The plan was simple. I would return home that evening as if I'd decided to accept Carla's ultimatum. Frank would be positioned across the street with a surveillance team, and FBI agents would be stationed around the neighborhood. When Vincent and his men showed up to help me disappear, the feds would move in. What if something goes wrong? I asked. Nothing's going to go wrong, Weller assured me. We'll have eyes on you the entire time. But as I drove back to my house that evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were missing something. Carla was smart, and she'd been planning this for months. She wouldn't make it easy for us. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Carla's car was gone, which meant she was either with Vincent or had decided to make herself scarce until the dirty work was finished. I went inside and turned on the lights, trying to act like a man who'd made peace with his own death. The FBI surveillance equipment was still hidden throughout the house, recording everything for posterity. At 8 o'clock, my phone rang. "Greg, it's me." Carla's voice sounded strained. "Have you made your decision?" "Yeah, I've made my decision." "And?" "I'll take Vincent's deal, but I want to meet with him first, work out the details." "That's probably a good idea. He's at the warehouse on Euclid Street. Do you know where that is?" Of course I knew where it was. I'd been watching the meet there for weeks. "I'll find it." "Greg, I want you to know that I really am sorry. I never wanted things to end this way." "I know," I lied. "I'll see you around, Carla." "Yeah, see you around." I hung up and immediately called Frank. "They want to meet at the warehouse," I said. "This is it. We're ready. FBI teams are already in position around the building. You just need to get them talking about their plans, get them to incriminate themselves on tape. And if they decide to end me on the spot, they won't. They need to make it look like an accident, remember? They can't just shoot you in Vincent's warehouse." I hoped he was right. The warehouse district at night looked like something out of a post-apocalyptic movie. Empty buildings, broken streetlights, and the kind of silence that makes you think about all the bad things that happen in places like this. Vincent's warehouse was a converted auto parts factory, surrounded by a chain-link fence and guarded by two men who looked like they ate steroids for breakfast. They searched me for tools and recording devices, but Frank had assured me that the FBI's latest surveillance technology was undetectable. Vincent was waiting inside, along with Carla and two more bodyguards. The warehouse was mostly empty, except for some shipping containers and office furniture that had seen better days. "Greg!" Vincent greeted me like an old friend. "I'm glad you decided to be reasonable about this." "I'm a reasonable guy." "That's what I like to hear." Carla was worried you might do something stupid. I looked at my wife, who couldn't meet my eyes. She was wearing a black dress that made her look like she was already in mourning. "So, how does this work?" I asked. "Do I just walk out of here and keep walking, or is there more to it?" "There's a little more to it," Vincent said. "See, the problem is that you know things. You know about me, about my relationship with your wife, about certain business arrangements that are better kept private. I'm not going to tell anyone anything. I believe you mean that. But people change their minds, especially when they're bitter about losing their wife to another man." One of the bodyguards moved closer to me. I could see the outline of a tool under his jacket. "So, what are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting that your disappearance needs to be permanent, final, the kind where you never get the chance to change your mind." "You're talking about ending me." "I'm talking about solving a problem in the most efficient way possible." Carla finally spoke up. "Vincent, you said—" "I said what I needed to say to get him here." Vincent's voice turned cold. "Did you really think we were going to let him walk away? He could bring down everything we've built. But the insurance money will still be yours, baby. Don't worry about that." I looked around the warehouse, trying to spot the FBI agents who were supposed to be watching my back. The building had dozens of windows and entrances, but I couldn't see any movement outside. "You know what's funny?" I said. "My wife thinks she's going to get away with this." Vincent laughed. "She is going to get away with this. You're going to have a tragic accident. She's going to collect the insurance money, and we're going to live happily ever after." "What kind of accident?" "Industrial accident. You were working late, Something went wrong with the equipment. Boom. These things happen all the time in your line of work. And you think the FBI is going to buy that? Vincent's smile faltered. What FBI? The FBI agents who have been investigating you for months, the ones who have recordings of you planning my homicide, the ones who are probably surrounding this building right now? The warehouse went dead silent. Vincent pulled out a tool and pointed it at my chest. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone, Vincent. I bet you've got about 50 missed calls from your various criminal enterprises, all wondering why the feds are kicking down their doors. Vincent looked at his phone and I saw his face go pale. You son of a witch. The garbage man was right, I said. He told me you were planning to end me, and I should have listened to him from the beginning. What garbage man? Frank Mallory. You remember Frank, don't you? He used to work for you before he started working for the FBI. That's when the warehouse lights went out and all heck broke loose. The FBI tactical team came through the windows like something out of an action movie, rappelling from the roof and blowing out the glass in a shower of sparks and smoke. Emergency floodlights turned the warehouse into day, and suddenly Vincent's tough guys didn't look so tough anymore. FBI! Nobody move! Hands where we can see them! Vincent still had his tool pointed at me, but now he was surrounded by agents with automatic tools. Not great odds, even for a guy who thought he was the king of Cleveland. Drop the tool! Detective Weller shouted. Drop it now! For a moment, I thought Vincent might actually try to shoot his way out. His finger was on the trigger, and I could see the calculation in his eyes. How many agents could he take down before they ended him? But Carla made the decision for him. Vincent, don't! She screamed. It's over! He looked at her, then at me, then at the dozen FBI agents who had him in their sights. Slowly, he lowered the tool and placed it on the concrete floor. Vincent D'Amato, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit homicide, racketeering, money laundering, and about 15 other charges that are going to put you away for the rest of your life, Weller said as she cuffed him. The bodyguards surrendered without a fight, smart enough to know when they were overpowered. But Carla just stood there in her black dress, looking like she couldn't quite believe what was happening. Mrs. Norris, another agent said, approaching her with handcuffs. You're also under arrest. For what? She asked. I haven't done anything wrong. Conspiracy to commit homicide, insurance fraud, accessory to racketeering. Should I go on? As they led her away, Carla looked back at me one last time. Greg, you have to understand, I never wanted you to get hurt. You took out a life insurance policy on me and planned my homicide, I said. How exactly did you think that was going to work out? She didn't have an answer for that. Frank appeared at my elbow as the warehouse emptied out. You okay? He asked. Yeah, thanks to you. Thanks to you, too. You played that perfectly. What happens now? Now they go to prison and you get to start your life over. Detective Weller joined us as the last of the suspects were loaded into FBI vehicles. We've been after Vincent D'Amato for 3 years, she said. Tonight, we got him on charges that'll put him away for life. And we couldn't have done it without you. What about Carla? She's looking at 25 to life. Conspiracy to commit homicide is a serious charge, especially when we have her on tape admitting to it. I watched through the warehouse windows as the FBI convoy drove away, taking my wife and her lover to federal lockup. Tomorrow, this would all be over the news. The suburban housewife and her mobster boyfriend caught in a homicide plot that sounded like something out of a crime novel. You know what the really crazy part is? I said to Frank as we walked out to our cars. What's that? If she just asked for a divorce, I would have given her everything. The house, the savings, whatever she wanted. I'm not a vindictive guy. But that wouldn't have been enough, would it? She didn't just want your money. She wanted Vincent's lifestyle, and that required a lot more cash than a maintenance engineer's savings account, the life insurance money. Exactly. $1 million buys a lot of fancy dinners and expensive clothes. As I drove home through the empty streets of Cleveland, I thought about the past 6 months and how different my life was going to be tomorrow. No more wondering where Carla was when she claimed to be working late. No more pretending not to notice the lies and the secret phone calls. No more sleeping next to someone who was planning my death. The house felt different when I walked inside. Bigger, somehow, like it had been holding its breath and could finally exhale. I poured myself a beer and sat in my living room, looking at the spot where Carla had confessed to her affair just that morning. It seemed like a lifetime ago. My phone rang. It was Jared. Dude, I just saw the news. Are you okay? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. Man, I can't believe Carla was mixed up with the mob. I mean, she always seemed so normal. Yeah, well, apparently normal was just an act. What are you going to do now? I looked around the house that was finally completely mine. I'm going to sleep in tomorrow morning, then I'm going to change the locks. After that, I don't know. Maybe take a vacation. I haven't had a real vacation in years. You deserve it, man. You really do. After I hung up, I walked through the house, turning off lights and checking locks out of habit. In the bedroom, I opened Carla's closet and looked at all the expensive clothes she'd bought with money she'd stolen from our accounts. Designer dresses, shoes that cost more than most people's rent, handbags that could probably feed a family for a month. All of it bought with dirty money, purchased with the proceeds of crimes I was only beginning to understand. Tomorrow, I'd donate it all to charity. Let someone get some good out of Carla's ill-gotten gains. I was about to close the closet door when I noticed something I'd missed before. A small jewelry box hidden behind her shoe rack. Inside, I found documents that made my blood run cold. Bank statements showing accounts I'd never heard of, with balances in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Correspondence with lawyers about setting up offshore corporations. And most alarming of all, a detailed timeline of my daily routine, with notes about when I'd be most vulnerable to an accident. Carla hadn't just been planning to end me. She'd been planning it for over a year, studying my habits, figuring out the best time and place to make her move. The life insurance policy was just the final piece of a puzzle she'd been assembling since the day she met Vincent. I called Detective Weller. "I found something you need to see," I said. An hour later, she was sitting at my kitchen table, photographing documents that would add another decade to Carla's prison sentence. "This is incredibly thorough," Weller said. "Your wife missed her calling. She would have made a good detective. Or a good criminal." "Well, she certainly tried. But she made one crucial mistake." "What's that?" "She underestimated you. She thought you were just some blue-collar guy who wouldn't notice what was happening right under his nose." "To be fair, I almost didn't. But you did, and that made all the difference." After Weller left, I sat alone in my kitchen, drinking coffee and watching the sun come up over Cleveland. It was going to be a beautiful day, the kind of crisp, clear October morning that makes you glad to be alive. And I was alive, despite my wife's best efforts to change that. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Saw the news. Glad you're okay. Frank." I smiled and typed back. "Thanks for everything. The garbage man was right." A few minutes later, he replied, "Sometimes the trash takes itself out. Enjoy your freedom." I deleted both messages and finished my coffee. Then I called my boss and told him I'd be taking a few personal days. I had a lot to figure out. Lawyers to hire, a house to reorganize, a life to rebuild from the ground up. But for the first time in months, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't looking over my shoulder or wondering what fresh heck was waiting around the next corner. Vincent D'Amato was in federal prison, facing charges that would keep him there until he was an old man. Carla was in the cell next to him, probably still trying to figure out how her perfect plan had fallen apart so spectacularly. And I was free. Free to sleep without worrying about being homicided in my bed. Free to come home without wondering what lies I'd be told over dinner. Free to trust people again, to maybe even fall in love again someday with someone who wouldn't try to end me for insurance money. The garbage man was right about a lot of things. But most of all, he was right about this. Sometimes you have to take out the trash before you can start fresh. I walked out to my front porch and looked up and down the street at my neighbors' houses, at the normal suburban life I'd almost lost. Mrs. Krantz was walking her little dog again, probably wondering why there had been so many police cars in the neighborhood the night before. Maybe I'd tell her the story someday. Maybe I'd write a book about it. Or maybe I'd just keep it to myself, a reminder of how quickly a normal life can turn deadly and how important it is to pay attention to the people trying to warn you. Frank Mallory had saved my life by doing his job, collecting garbage and keeping his eyes open. The least I could do was live that life well. I went back inside, poured myself another cup of coffee, and started making plans for a future I'd almost lost. It was going to be a good day.